Hey, I'm Mirror PF Dennis. I'm introducing the show this week. Those losers from the other side can only do this bi-weekly. Wimps. Anywho, we got a redonkulous amount of chatter going down in this week's show. So here it is with little commercial interruption. Yeah, like I give a vole's ass. Anybody got a smoke on him? I left mine in the shuttle.
It's me again, Crazy Chalaski, and have I got some deals for you. This is my wildest sale ever. You had the best, now try the rest. You don't have to spend bars of your latinum when strips will get you the finest used slaves this side of Regulus. Sure, these babies have a little mileage on them, but one man's trash is another man's treasure, am I right? Yes, I am, because Crazy Chalaski's got deals that are just plain lunacy. I've got green ones, white ones, blue ones. I can't even name all the shapes and styles I'm offering you at absolutely nutty rock-bottom prices. I'm Crazy Chalaski, and if you're in the market for a pre-owned harlot, I've got her in my inventory. Take old Jamunga here. She can cough up a bucket of Dovamite phlegm all day, but it completely clears up by nightfall. That's when you really need her anyway, am I right? Of course I am, and she's just 8 strips. Go ahead and say it. Chalaski is crazy. Look at Valmay. She has absolutely no visible scarring, and she can be coherent for almost 90 minutes at a time. That's plenty if you know what I'm talking about. And this scratch-and-dead strumpet will only set you back 6 strips. Okay, 5 strips. I must be out of my mind. Of course I am. I'm Crazy Chalaski. Now, Gallus here has only had a single owner. That's right, just one owner. Since he died of some strange alien virus, you can get this sweetie for a song. Literally. Come down and sing to me and she's all yours. Why, you ask? Because I'm Crazy Chalaski. That's right, Crazy Chalaski. And my prices are insane!
Crazy Chalaski is not responsible for any defects or medical anomalies, nor is he liable for any damages after purchase. And remember, all sales are final, no returns accepted. We're going to pick up right where we left off last week in our interview with Captain Gecko, Al Rivera, lead designer of Star Trek Online.
I think we've got a couple left from the forums, and I know we've got a couple more from ourselves, and a few more. The Vault event looks fantastic. However, the event is offered at times when I cannot play. Will this event be available more often, and how long will this event be around? Do you know?
Well, as far as how long it's going to be around, I don't anticipate it ever going away. It's what we're trying to do, and I recommend. Are you not? Where are you calling from? You said you're just curious your time zone.
Oh, this is from Tucana, so I don't know exactly where.
It was actually Pacific Coast.
Okay. We keep hearing these sort of things keep coming up, right? And so we're constantly rotating and changing the calendar schedule. It's a strategy. And as a free-to-play game, we're always experimenting with different strategies. And Perfect World has these calendar events. And so we adopted that strategy. Inevitably, what it means is that sometimes people will have trouble accessing certain events. We're a global game. We've got people in Europe who play at a large European base. Germans love Star Trek Online, and they love Star Trek. So we
just
and
set it all to UK, and we'll all be fine.
And right, set all to UK, right? So we've got a So we're always every time we introduce a new event, we always take a second look at the schedule, and then I'll harp on we need to make sure that there's something in some prime time for the Pacific coasters and the East coasters and the European all the time. But inevitably, somebody's got to work that night or just doesn't work out. They just have a former engagement and it doesn't work out for them. And I'm sorry for that. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to build a very robust calendar. And as you notice, as we're adding more and more content, we're focusing a lot on the calendar. It's not complete as far as I'm concerned, and we keep wanting to add more and more events there, because the goal of the calendar is the strategy of the calendar, as opposed to just saying all this content is available all the time. Because we have content in the game that is available all the time. But the goal of the calendar is to get people sticky. So people, they're playing, and every hour we want that calendar to be filled with really cool things all the time. So you're playing till 10 at night or 11 at night or whatever, and he says, "Oh, at 12 this vault event's on. I'll just stay on an extra hour," right? or whatever that time may be. Oh, it's going to be the Rivera invasion, or it's going to be on. Oh, there's different events that keep coming up, and so or it's like, no, that's too late. It's coming at 2 a.m, and I'm on this coast time, and it's no good. Let me see when it's on again. Oh, it's going to be on Saturday at 6. Well, I could do that. They wouldn't normally play maybe that time, but then they'll come on, and then they'll see that, oh, at 8 o'clock there's this event too. So the calendar isn't as full as far as I'm satisfied for it to be full. So we want to keep adding more and more calendar events, so that way we can have then different schedules. So right now we have 2 schedules planned. For 1 week we play this schedule, and the next week have a different schedule. But I like to have other schedules too, so we can have multiple ones. So that way everybody gets an opportunity to play all the different content. And as more and more interesting content goes in that calendar, maybe you won't be able to play the vault, maybe you will, but maybe there'll be something else that'll be just as exciting. Hopefully there'll be something really cool on the calendar every few hours for everybody. So it's a strategy. Because without the calendar, then people come and play where they want, and then they leave. So it's something new. It's fairly new in cryptic's terms, as far as we've only been doing it for a few months. It works really well for Perfect World, so we're trying it. Just like the lockboxes and just like the dilithium exchange, these are new concepts that Perfect World brought to us that works for them really well, helps with retention and helps with maintaining a free-to-play game. And you know what? We'll keep adjusting as we see. We'll try it. It doesn't work. We'll try something else. We'll try a different schedule. Maybe we do something more like the events are always available, but if you play during the calendar event, you get bonus rewards. So you get a little bit of both. So that's something like, I just made that up, right? So that's something. So I'm not saying that we'll iterate, and we try to make everybody happy.
Well, I think that happened once, like what you just described happened with the Foundry stuff once before. There was a Foundry event in the calendar, so you could still do the wrapper. If you did, if you completed that wrapper during the Foundry event, extra bonus sort of thing.
Yeah, we've done stuff like that before. I don't know if there is a plan to do anything like that with the vaults, for instance. And now that the Fairground invasion has another 20 missions, a whole other section, we were able to make that duration longer, so people could participate in that more often. Because I think we had it on for an hour, and now it's on for 2, or was it 2 and now it's on for 3? I can't remember. So
I've only ever played 2 missions of it. I'm terrible.
So anyway, we don't plan on taking the vaults out of the calendar because we're still in beta testing of the calendar, right? We're still seeing how it works, and we haven't finished our strategy of filling it up with more stuff. But we will keep adjusting to that, and we recognize what people are saying, but we're also recognizing that people are getting very excited about it. They're buying shuttles, they're going to the events, they're staying on. You can see people get sticky when that event rolls around, where the hump might go down, because you can almost watch a sine wave every day while people play. And we graph times that people are online, and then when we do certain things, oh look, the sine wave didn't go down that long, right? And then there's some results, and that's a result, right? Because we have to pay a lot of attention to what the forms say, but we also have to pay a lot of attention to what the data says. So,
I've got one more from the forums, and that's from Bazag, and he's asking, do you play Foundry missions?
Well, yes. I mean, as I just said before we first talking, I was just I don't play as much as I'd like, but I was just playing First Cause and then Effect because I had heard so many things about it, and I was just playing right before while I was waiting to chat with the show. And I remember playing a lot more stuff earlier on when we first launched it. And I played, Gosh, I keep forgetting the name of this one because I really enjoyed it. It was a zombie one, and I love zombies, and I just love the way what somebody did with you go to the ship. It's the USS Romero, which is great, and
it's to use this one, I think. Oh gosh, what was it called?
I can't remember what it was, but everyone's
mean,
infected. You talk to some. There's a whole crew and they're of the ship, and they're behind a force field. There's a teller right there, and you have to go around and you see like all these little red dots everywhere, and I think they just used like targs or something because they were really fragile, like little neophytes, and they changed them to they were all Federation officers, but I guess they used like an old skin on their face to make them all look like they were dried out, desiccated zombies. They start swarming at you and biting you like a targ powers or biting you. So like it's like, oh my god, this is so awesome! They start pouring in on you, and I love zombies. I wish to work. I'd love to work on a zombie MMO one day. But so that was fun to see two of my favorite genres cross paths. I do wish I would play more, but I don't even get to play Star Trek as much as I would like to, because I'm always playing at work, right? I'm always playing what's new, what we're working on, and I've got a lot of different characters, and then I trying my team is trying to get me to join a Klingon PvP guild. And I really stink at PvP. It's players are so much better than me. Internally, I'm really good against the rest of the devs, but against the players, I just don't have. They have so much more patience. They have so much more time. So when I do get to play, I usually coming in and playing whatever is the latest featured thing, and then once in a while, like I have an older character that doesn't really. The new characters have really good featured episodes as far as the cadence, as far as you can get yourself all the way up. But if you have an older character, the conversion doesn't work that well. So I had like this long gap of several levels with nothing to do while during that conversion. So I've been playing Foundry missions to try to catch up with them. Can't get back till the cadence catches back up. So it's a little different. Like if you have a new character, there's content. The featured series brings you all the way to the end perfectly. But to do that, we had to move the levels of certain episodes around. So if you happen to be a character that was, say, like level 25, what you might have been ready to play next might have been moved up. And so there was a little gap for that when we went free to play. So I happened to have a couple characters like that. And so I'm trying to fill the gap. I don't want to go do exploration content, so I want to do Foundry missions. So I'm using Foundry missions to fill that up. And DOFs. Lots of DOFs to try to get me through it.
You can power through levels with DOFs. It's incredible. Yeah, I went up three levels with 20 DOF assignments. I was amazed.
Yes, you can if you got the right DOF, certainly.
Yes.
I don't think you can do that so well with all whites. But if you got a lot of good DOFs, you can certainly power through that. And speaking of DOFs, we'll be adding we want people to play DOFs at endgame, so there'll be a lot more stuff coming with that, hopefully, along with the fleet system. So it'll be fun and viable for endgame players as well.
That's another thing. We're hoping one day, you probably won't know anything about it, but we're hoping one day we might get integration with DOF.
DOFs in the Foundry?
DOFs in the Foundry, yeah.
Yeah, that really should just happen. Because we just got the ability to do it, right? I mean, in the last featured episodes. So it's brand new, and it's we wanted that. We got that
full of
in.
dev hacks.
Yeah. So we just got that in for the Deep Space Nine featured, the Dominion featured series, and I can't even remember. I think it was the first episode that had that, and then so it's fairly new, and we're just starting to put more of that in there. So we have to kind of merge the minds of the two, this feature and make that available on the Foundry for that feature.
And then make sure it's not too OP and all those sorts of.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't even know what would be involved to do that. We would have to we would have to build it very much like a Foundry tool, right? Now you and I are just brainstorming, right? You'd have to make it so there'd be a standard reward table for these assignments based on time, right? So the players wouldn't pick the rewards. They could
pick from a range of.
Yeah, I don't want this to be a 10-minute assignment. I want this to be a 3-day assignment, and then they could pick, the traits and specializations they wanted to complete it. And so it shouldn't be too much of a problem to not make that overpowered. You just can't let the players really pick the rewards.
Yeah.
So and then you'll get.
Otherwise, you just have a mission full of Mark 12 gear drops.
Yeah. I think you would just basically get a standard reward table of how much certain. Okay, this is going to reward diplomacy CXP, or this is going to reward engineering CXPs, and players perhaps could pick those things, but they're going to get the standard amount of energy credits or dilithium or whatever it is, whatever table we would design. And then
I think that would actually really add to getting people to come and play Foundry missions, because then it's something else that they know that they're going to get this extra. Extra missions.
You know what? That's a great idea, and maybe I can chat with Heretic, Jeff Tuffley, our DOF designer, and I wouldn't count on that for season 6. Everybody is so buried in season 6 right now, but I think that's a clever idea, and I know Neverwinter is looking at DOF technology in a very different way than what we have. It's just a piece of technology, and you could use it a different way. So I really don't know what they're doing with it, but if they are, that might also give us more leverage to do something with it with the Foundry as well. Because if more projects use it, then the more argument it is to invest in that technology.
What project, as far as Stowe goes right now, are you most proud of having included in the game so far? And secondly, what item are you most looking forward to seeing in the game that you're working on? I guess we'll say the near future, if you can speak on that.
Well, let's take those one at a time, and I'm happy to answer both of those. What project? Well, I've worked on Star Trek since day one, so if you're asking me what am I most proud of, I'm gonna, as far as an entire system, I'm gonna say space combat, just in general. As far as that was something that I had the opportunity to work on with a very small number of people when we first launched the game. When we were working with, when we had the opportunity to get the license, Perpetual had the Star Trek license, and I actually knew somebody it was an ex-Cryptic employee who was a designer, or was the lead designer or senior designer over there, and working on Star Trek, and I was so jealous of him, right? He didn't even like Star Trek. He didn't even like it. He was a great designer, and he came from Worlds of Warcraft. But he wasn't passionate about the IP in the slightest. And I was so jealous. Says, you don't deserve work on this project, right? And so, because I've just been such a Trekkie from the beginning. I've watched every single episode many times of every show. So when I got the opportunity to work on that was great. And because we had a core Cryptic engine, we were at the time, I can't remember if we were working on Marvel or if we were already moving on Champions at the time. I think we were on Champions at that time. Get a core engine. It's like, okay, let me put together a prototype. So I got one engineer, and we had one artist, and me, and maybe there was probably a modeler and effects artist, and then one engineer and me. And it's like we came up with this, what we wanted to see for space combat. We wanted tall ships combat. We did not want a WoW style combat. We didn't even want a City of Heroes style combat. We wanted tall ships combat, right? And nothing, not like Eve, not like X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. It was going to be, big, tall ships with spacings and firing arc. Within 5 weeks or something, we had a working prototype, which a lot of that basis is still in the game. And it was so much fun. And it was just a real tribute to what the Cryptic engine can do. And we needed to do that in order to get the license from CBS. They needed, because I don't think they obviously didn't get the progress that they wanted from Perpetual, and things weren't working out. So they were leery on investing in another developer, and we were able to show them something within 5 weeks or so, a really fun working prototype. It's evolved certainly a lot more since then. But I still just love playing more than any other MMO. I love playing our space combat, and I'm most proud of it. I would say of anything else in the game. And certainly we've done so much more I think the Foundry is spectacular, but I didn't really have much to do with it. So I can't really claim being proud personally of it. As a Cryptic employee, I would probably say it is more profound than the space combat and has far-reaching impact and influence in the industry as a whole is the Foundry. So, but I had nothing to do with that, so I can't really, very little. So I can't claim much personal pride from that, other than professional.
I adore the space combat. Absolutely adore it.
It's great. It's great.
It's what brings me back to the game every single time.
Yeah, and I guess that kind of leads into the second half of your question is maybe you could re-ask is what am I working on now?
Or what are you most looking forward to getting into the game and taunting people with?
Well, the funny thing is that 3 months ago or 4 months ago, you would ask me, I would say, I really want to see a star-based system in the game. And you know what? Well, now I get to taunt you with it because that's what's coming. So I'm really, really looking forward to presenting that to the players. And it's still very early. A lot of it's still just design. A lot of it is in code, and a lot of the content is actually being made. But it's not a social system, or it's not a place where people can make it's not like a ship interiors, like when we launched ship interiors. It's a full featured, it's a fully fleshed out feature, and people will be able to develop their starbase, and they'll be able to there's going to be content for it designed around the starbase, and there'll be rewards, and there'll be lots and lots of things to do to keep you busy for a long time, and lots of room for expansion in the future for it. So it's going to change Star Trek Online significantly, and it is primarily designed for endgame, because I think we've got plenty of good stuff for all the new players coming in, and our focus, and Dan Stahl has said this before, and he has it on his whiteboard every time we go into the office. The game begins at endgame, right? The game begins at 50. So there will be, so that's what I'm really looking forward to. Personally, as the lead designer, I spend most of my time doing meetings and directing the team, or my background is primarily in systems. I was a systems designer originally in Cryptic, which means I did a lot of combat systems. I did the entire combat system for City of Heroes, for instance, and made all the powers and the classes, and I did that for when I worked on Marvel, and I did the foundation for the combat system foundation for Champions Online. Certainly has evolved a lot since I left that project. So my background is primarily in combat systems and things like that. I don't have a background in missions. So I work really closely with the systems designers. But at this point, most of the work is handled by that team. And the only thing I've always kept for myself are starships. Because I'm very passionate about them. They're the most Star Trek iconic thing for me, and I love making them. And frankly, there's also, it's a certain cornerstone of the revenue of the game. So it's also something I keep close to me. So I'm working on a new ship right now, and several more. If you caught the Priority One podcast, I talked a lot of detail about all the starships that will be coming out. So if you had some questions about them, I certainly can talk more about them in detail. But I didn't want to rehash the entire interview with what I just released on Priority One.
When you started talking about broadside cruisers, I went, oh my.
It has a lot of repercussions, doesn't it? Just the idea of just having port and starboard that you can actually, instead of forward and aft, and where you can slot cannons and torpedoes on the sides, but then you wouldn't be able to fire forward and back. So
that would just be my ship. Really, that would be perfect for my play style.
It could be very overpowered, and frankly, I don't know. Right? I can see the problems with it, perhaps, but I can't really tell until we get it and play with it.
Yeah.
I don't have the technology to do it yet. Some of that is hard-coded. There's a lot of UI that had to be changed, so it's not entirely data-driven, which is what the designers do. We implement the data for it and the tuning of it. So we need some technology, but I think that would be really, really cool. And I think we could probably. I'm hoping that we can make it more balanced by saying it's only 3 port and 3 starboard. So you wouldn't have a full 8 weapons, but maybe we won't have to. We'll just have to play test it and see.
When I heard about it, I envisioned it sort of being like a fleet ship to tie in with Season 6, all the fleet stuff going on. So you would have some limits on it, sort of thing. But
have what limits?
So you'd have sort of some limits on
not
everyone could just have one. It would have to be done through the Fleet
Well,
projector.
I once we have fleets, the doors open up for all kinds of weird things.
Yeah.
I mean, think some really big, massive siege ship to attack somebody's starbase, right?
I just want a huge dreadnought, to be honest.
Yeah, just like this giant thing that that's.
I want to build a planet killer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have a planet killer or a big Zindi weapon, right?
Oh gosh, yeah.
so no, that's a little further. We have a lot to do with starbases before that comes, but yeah, I think a broadsiding would add a lot, very new gameplay. I always
It would add the final thing to naval combat, basically.
Yeah, it's the true to form to the tall ship.
Yeah, that is tall ship combat, right? But so I mean, technically we have it with cruisers because you want a broadside because you get to overlap your firing arcs on your phasers, and that's kind of what you're doing there. But you can't fire your torpedoes and you can't fire your cannons, so that
you don't need torpedoes, you don't need cannons, just an Excelsior with with fire at will and phasers, and everything dies.
I'm just looking forward just to see how it feels. Just to see what it'd be like, and we'd want to keep. It's not. I don't think that we've seen anything, or I can't think of anything from Star Trek that was like that. So we'll have to be careful to make sure we maintain the integrity of the IP. So we'll see.
I could see it fitting within the IP, though.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like I've talked about before. Maybe it's an Andorian battlecruiser, right? Because I could see the Andorians doing that more so than Starfleet itself. So a Federation ship, but not necessarily a Starfleet ship.
I suppose
Klingons as well. I could totally see the Klingons just doing it without a problem. So.
Oh yeah. I suppose that talking about fleet starbases and that sort of thing, we heard some stuff a while back about the Foundry possibly being integrated into the fleet starbases for actually creating them and that sort of thing. I don't suppose you know anything more about that or can tell us about it?
I do know more about that, and I'm sorry to say that no, that is not going to be a feature for the at least the initial launch of Starbases. You're not going to be able to customize your layout, and the reason why, and it's a similar reason that's a problem with ship interiors, because if we were to do ship interiors, we would probably redo them very differently. Because players want to play content inside their ship interiors. And so we want people to be able to play content inside their Starbase interiors. And if players are designing their own ship interiors, we can't lay out a mission. We can't place spawns and say, okay, you're being boarded by Klingons or Borg or whatever. Because we have to place the spawns, and I mean, as Foundry authors, you can't just take those, your mission, just plop it onto a different map. It just doesn't work. So you'll be able to progress, but you're not going to be able to customize it within the Foundry. It was something we talked about doing, and I think it would be fun. And maybe one day we'll allow you to, again, this is you and I brainstorming and talking hypothetically, allow you to customize a certain level of your Starbase, right? So there's like the main level, which is where all the functionality is, and if we put content in it, it would be there. But you could design a social zone lower down.
Yeah.
Right? So that's no content happens there. There's no contacts. There's no functionality. There's never been a gameplay. But you can just design. This is what I want this is whatever it is that players want to look like. So
I'm gonna arboretum and a shuttle.
Yeah. So whatever So it's not on the schedule for season 6. It's not part of it. We decided we didn't want to end up with another social zone without functionality, which is basically, until the duty officer system was added to the ship interiors. That's basically what ship interiors was. And so we wanted to make sure that we had a very robust feature system, and that became the priority. But I'd love to see that still, the ability to do that, as far as maybe letting you sculpt out a floor for yourself. So, but doesn't exist any more than what we just talked about.
And that concludes part 2 of our interview with Captain Gecko, Al Rivera. Come back on May 7th for the conclusion. You may not recognize me, but I hold the record for the longest consecutive win streak in dueling history. Don't feel bad. It happens all the time. When I'm eating at my favorite restaurant or charging goods and services all over the Alpha Quadrant and beyond. Let's face it, there are some malevolent species out there and they just don't trust me. But they do trust this, the Andorian Express card, known throughout the quadrant as a symbol of prestige. It's not just a charge card, it's a status symbol that says I'm somebody. and it's accepted on planets galaxy-wide. You may not be from my homeworld, but nothing says you've arrived like Andorian Express. Even when my opponents fail to realize what they're in for, it's easy to remind them. I'm Shrek, and I've taken the lives of 16 men, a career that screams excellence, just like my card, Andorian Express. Don't Ushan without it.
And now we're joined by the wonderful Terry Lynn S. Terry Shull, say hi.
Hello.
Alistair Moore, who's Alimac 30.
Hey, everyone.
And Christine Thompson, the lead writer for Star Trek Online, Cricket Kestrel.
Hello, everyone.
Today we're here to talk about writing in the Foundry. Specifically today we are looking at a mission that Alistair wrote, or Alimac made. How long ago would it be?
It was published in November, start of November 2011.
So the mission we're talking about is the city of the Polmar. The writing of it is wonderfully written, I must say. I was just playing through it now.
Thank you. That mission, I think, really is a product of the circumstances that were around at the time that I started to build it, because I think I'd spent 2 or 3 weeks building the Arboretum, one of the first maps in the mission. And then we had Season 4, which pretty much killed the Foundry, okay? So, there were some problems that meant that we couldn't get into the Foundry and edit for quite a long time, maybe, a month or two. So I wasn't in the Foundry editor building maps and stringing together objectives and puzzles and combat and that kind of thing. All I could do was sit with a word processor and just write dialogue. So it is a long mission, and it's very story heavy and dialogue heavy. So that really was a product of not being able to get into the Foundry and just sitting there writing and just letting myself go wild and indulge myself and just write a story rather than build a mission.
Well, it certainly shows, I must say. I half expected it to be a diplomatic mission the whole way through, as in no combat. But I think it actually struck up quite good balance between the combat and the non-combat. It was very good. I know that Terry and I just played it. Did you have a chance to play it, Kestrel?
Yeah, I played it last night. And it's a beautiful, absolutely beautiful, beautiful mission. Those missions like that are part of what the Foundry was designed to do. Just those awesome, expansive stories. Maybe not necessarily stories that we would end up doing in a featured episode or series or something like that, but just really, really creative, really out there stories. It was great to see that.
I would have to agree with you, Kestrel. It's definitely a mission that highlights the reason why the Foundry is such a spectacular tool for the players. It allows for storytelling that, Cryptic may not have the ability or even the desire to be able to do, because players can take on deeper and sometimes more dialogue intensive things that you as a writer for Cryptic may get criticized for by a more pew-pew kind of a fan crowd, but that the Foundry author would have a tougher skin about, I guess it would say, or have the ability to have a tougher skin about, because they're putting forward stories that are, just they have the ability to do stories that you may not necessarily have the ability to do. I think the City of the Polmar is a perfect example of one of those missions that exemplifies why the Foundry is so spectacular.
Yeah, Terry and I have talked about this before in other interviews, but one of the things we end up doing with the game we have created is we have to try to appeal to the broadest possible market. We have people that like combat, and we have people that like story, and we have people that like diplomacy, and then we have people that are like, don't make me do another puzzle before I punch the monitor. And so, we have to we try to make this balance through our content that that most people will find a little bit of what they want and some of what they want. But the Foundry authors have a freedom. If they want to do, I'm just going to do a pure out story, you can do that. If you just want to do, all right, I'm going to do pure out hardcore combat, you can do that. As you guys have that freedom, and you can get some really spectacular stuff out of it.
Yeah, what is so great about the Foundry and being a Foundry author, actually, is that I don't have those kinds of constraints that you have, Kestrel, because I'm not writing for the player base at large. The only person that I'm writing for is me, because I'm not writing STO missions as a job. I'm using the Foundry as a hobby. And when I indulge myself in a hobby, I just go and have fun. So I'm completely indulging myself when I create a big, massive folly like City of the Pommery. It's just having fun and indulging myself, and why not? Because it's my hobby. So the only person I'm writing it for is me.
And you could tell that mission was a labor of love. It was really, really spectacular. The maps are spectacular. I was just sitting there trying to figure out how you put those columns in the Arboretum without, with the top-down interface. I was like, how did he do that?
I didn't even think of that. I did not even see that. When I was walking through, my jaw was kind of agape, and I know that I didn't get to run around the Arboretum as much. I'm going to be playing this mission again almost immediately, and hopefully with Oliver, so I can run around and do the Easter eggs with him. I did not realize that there were things in the Arboretum that now that I understand.
I really appreciate the little bit under the bridge. That was a nice touch.
See, when Terry and I were walking about playing the mission, and I said this before we started recording, that I wanted to keep exploring. I wanted to look around, and there's this huge map, and I could see that there were consoles around that I knew would talk to you. So we missed out some dialogue there, and I'm sure it was sort of a backstory, but I wanted to see it. It really engaged me. It doesn't happen all that often, but when I was playing that mission, I was just, wow, I want to explore this map. I want to find those little extra little bits, because this is really well written. I want to see more. I craved more from it. Even though by the end of it we were fighting Klingons and I didn't want to go around the corner.
That's only because you were playing with a partner who was ill-equipped with the correct weaponry. I apologize for that.
That's all really great feedback, guys. It's really nice to hear that about a map, actually, because the Arboretum, it was a labor of love. And as I said, just doing this as a hobby, if your hobby happens to be building starship models or something, you may get really lost in the minutiae of gluing on the tiniest pieces and painting them and putting on all the decals, So in the same way, when I'm building a map in the Foundry, I just get really into the detail and building levels on top of one another, sort of building up and down on the y-axis. That is really tough using the top-down editor. So I have spreadsheets and I'm just translating objects on the various axes using formulae in a spreadsheet. But it's just about being so into this as a hobby and getting really sucked into the details of it.
Well, I know exactly what you mean with that. Earlier on today, when I was working on a mission, I've been working for ages, Klingon mission, but I built a complete custom Klingon ship map, interior map, and I had this big long net, but I realized I'd run out of assets a long time ago. So I took the decision to move it all back. And with our editor, we can't copy things and move them. I had to reduce all the formula or the by 60 and go through about 100 objects and do that and delete a load of others. And if I wasn't so into the Foundry, if I didn't love it so much, I wouldn't do that. It really is. I have so much respect for everything you did, especially as you did so much of it before we even got 3 decimal places.
Yeah, I mean, the Pommery City, actually, when the player eventually gets there, that building the interior of the Pommery City was even worse than the Arboretum. Well, I say worse. I mean, I love it. That's why I do it. But it was even more work because the floor is transparent and the map is like 3 levels deep. I just have this notion that I wanted the floor to be transparent, so I used a horizontal force field just to make it look so unlike any other environment that had been seen in any of the cryptic missions. This was meant to be a city that was outside the known galaxy. It was supposed to be ancient and advanced. So it had to look completely different. So I had this notion of a transparent floor, which sounds brilliant, and then you start building with it, and you realize you can't hide anything, and you can't cheat, and you can't tuck objects away behind other objects in the way that you would do.
There's nothing blocking the viz, and
it all had to be pristine and completely clean and neat, and it all had to fit together. And of course, all of those objects that I used were never designed to fit together in that way. So it was that was some hard going, that map.
I just stopped and looked at these lovely little patterns that the force field waves were making when they all joined together. They physically had to drag me away.
I did. I actually had to say, I love you, but we're here to talk about the writing. So so let's go read what he wrote. I'm going to just kind of ask you, Alamak, is you talk not dissimilarly about your work and your hobby of being a Foundry author than people I know who use fan fiction as their hobby. And one of the things that I would say the more particular fan fiction authors that I know, they have in common with you is this idea of the love of the detail of it all. The fact is that you put a lot of work, not just into the maps of your mission, but it's absolutely clear from just how you wrote the plot line of this mission, as well as all of the background that you gave, that you have a very clear understanding about pretty much every episode of Star Trek that ever had been aired.
One of the things I really appreciated about that was that, yeah, it was so indicative of Star Trek, and it was very much a Star Trek story. It did it without being a list of, here's the references from various shows. And
Right.
I do that all the time because people love to see them, but it's really, really nice when you can do a Trek story without specifically saying, hey, look, and Kirk did this too. And I think that advances.
I mean, it was even things like when you walked past, I think it was your cameo NPC was talking about Captain Nog, one of the people who's commanding one of the vessels there. And then we were reading one of the dialogues, and I said to Terry, well, I know the Iconians, and I've heard of this other lot, but who are the Tacon? Where are they from?
Yeah, they're mentioned.
Last Outpost.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. They're mentioned, and several times, and now even again in Vanguard, in the Vanguard series, they're mentioned as being kind of almost rivals to the Shaddai, and it was quite interesting.
To me, everything in that entire map was all about establishing this civilization and seamlessly fitting it in and explaining. You explained everything. I didn't really find any plot holes with it, which is unusual. You explained why there was no evidence of them left in the galaxy, why there was not really much, why you didn't really hear anything much about them. I mean, there's such a long gap. That's more than most species' lifetimes. And it just worked so well, and you touchstoned on things beautifully, just so subtly, and yet the player knew, okay, that's where it comes from. I understand it. You gave them a decent reference point, and I think that worked so well, particularly as you're establishing a completely new race, and it was wonderful.
I have had bad reviews, actually, and people have emailed me in game to say that, why have we never heard of the Palmari before? You know, how could you introduce such a canon-breaking concept? And why did nobody in TNG or DS9 ever mention the Palmari?
Well, for the same reason why they didn't mention the Xindi in TOS.
Yeah, or you know,
Because it hadn't been written yet.
I just had this ridiculous idea one day that I just had this line in my head. You know, once every 216 years, every race in the galaxy is invited to visit something. So it became the Palmari City, and it was just this once. I think at first I was thinking once every 200 years. You know, everybody was invited. How could that work? What would happen when you got there? But you know, the story makes it clear that the last time anybody travelled off to see the Palmari was 216 years ago. So that's why nobody talks about it in TNG. I mean, you know, 216 years ago from now was 1796, and how often do we in conversation talk about events that happened in 1796? Well, we don't.
Oh, I did that just yesterday.
Every day.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, everybody does it. I just
You're just weird. Sorry.
Well, there's an interesting thing, you know, not just Star Trek, but anything like this that has a lot of history and has a lot of background to it. It is really liberating because you have a lot to draw on, but it's a little constricting as well because you have a lot to draw on. But if you take anything like that and freeze it in amber, it stagnates. And when you add on to it, and when you explain things and go back and add stuff and say, okay, this happened when you weren't looking, then it continually, then you get to see growth.
To me, it fit into canon just perfectly. Mm-hmm. But the thing that really got me was that 216, that it seemed like such an arbitrary number to me at first. And then when I read it, I was like, well, the question is, did you come up with that straight away? Where did you get this from? Because it's so amazing. My mind was just blown. I was thinking that, sitting there going, maths. No, I don't. I know. No, brain.
I think it seems very impressive, but actually I was quite lucky with that. The first idea I had was 200. So once every 200 years, this signal arrives and everybody goes off to see the Palmari. So I thought about, okay, well, if it was 200 years before 2409, when was the last time it happened? And that was 200 placed it sort of between Enterprise and the original series, which is just perfect because we don't know what happened in that whole period. So you can mine that for anything you like. You can really write anything in that period. Well, I wanted the number to have some significance. So I wanted the player to question, well, why is it once every 200 years? You know, is there a mathematical reason? Is there a religious reason or a scientific reason or whatever? So I just started looking at numbers and just Googling various numbers. And 216 was that was the sweet spot. Okay. So 216 years before 2409 was about 9 years after the end of Enterprise, I think. So that worked with Archer and so on. 216 was the product of 3 sixes, so you've got the devil in there. There's also some, I think, Judaism or some religions that say that the true name of God is 216 characters long, so you've got devils and you've got gods. And then if you take 2 lots of 216 away from 2409, you get 1977, I think, which is when the WOW signal was detected here on Earth. So yes,
that was my question to you. Was did you always intend on including the WOW signal as part of your plot, or did you end up tripping over that and finding out this just happens to fit with my story? Were you lucky in that regard, or did you intend it?
I think it was combinations of both. I think I was somewhere else, just taking the bus across town or something, and I just thought, oh, what if the WOW signal was the primary? And then you start to do the math and just work out what number that would be, and it just all fit. So I think I kind of hoped I could make it fit, and then I discovered that I could, and that was a bit of blissful serendipity.
Luckiest, jammiest bastard.
Yeah.
I'm Crazy Chulaski, and I'm back with Chulaski's Choice. This week's special is a fine maiden named Alamar. She was owned by a Bajoran expatriate who she only rode before temple on Sundays. High mileage? Yes, but well maintained as you can see. Today and today only. Don't let this crazy deal pass you by. I'm asking floor strips down from 5. That is an amazingly demented deal. Her accessories alone are worth that. How can I do it, you ask? I'll tell you how. I'm crazy! That's right, I'm Crazy Chulaski. So come down and pick her up. Time's running out. Better yet, the first offer of 4 strips gets free delivery. Did you hear me? Free. It's insanity, I tell you. Severe mental disorder, the likes of which cannot be measured with any known technology. Because I'm Crazy Chulaski and my prices are insane.
And that's going to wrap up this week's whatever you call it. Anyway, May 7th, that's the next one. It's going to be a real big one. We got part 3 of El Rivera, the conclusion. And we got the second half of Pendant Primetime thing. Take it easy.